Hello, ghouls. Welcome to the 10th episode of Shrouded in Darkness. I'm your host, Marlena, and I'm so excited you've joined us. As always, we'll start our show with our disclosure. All stories that I share contain material I have researched. Some will be disturbing. Along with what I researched, I'm also going to share my thoughts on the case. Please understand that it is never our intention to offend or upset anyone. At Shrouded in Darkness, we're here to educate, discuss, and bring fresh light to cases. In today's episode, we're diving into the case of the National Forest serial killer. Let's begin with a little background. Gary Hilton was born November 22nd, 1946, to William Hilton and Cleo Reynolds in Atlanta, Georgia. There aren't many details on Gary's upbringing, but we do know at some point he and his mother moved to Florida after she divorced his father. She later marries Nilo DeBag in 1958. The following year, when Gary was around 13 years old, he shot his stepfather in the stomach. It's believed this was because Gary was really struggling with his parents' divorce, and he felt like Nilo was trying to take his mother away. Thankfully, the wounds were not life-threatening. Nilo recovered, and he did not press charges. Gary, though, did spend some time in a mental hospital following the incident. We move on to when Gary was 17. He joined the Army, earned his GED, and spent time in Germany. He was honorably discharged after 3 years for experiencing a schizophrenic breakdown where he claimed he could hear voices. This would be Gary's second time in a mental institute. I've not been able to find many more details about his time in mental hospitals or mental institutes, but I do think it's important that this very well could have helped play into what Gary does later on in his life. Now again, information is kind of scarce, so on these next few years, we're going to kind of move quickly. In 1969, when Gary was around 23 years old, he married his first wife, Sue. They divorced 2 years later. Then we meet his second wife, Dina Yvonne. He also divorces her after 2 years. In 1973, Gary has his first run-in with the law where he is convicted of driving under the influence and his license is revoked. In 1979, we meet his third wife, Betty Sue. They marry and divorce after only 7 months. Moving on to 1983, so Gary would be about 37, he was convicted of having drug paraphernalia and also carrying a pistol without a permit. In 1987, another drug charge, followed by 21 counts of solicitation in 1994. Then there are a few more charges continuing up all the way until 1995. It goes without saying that Gary Hilton does not excel in the romance department, nor does he seem to want to keep a normal job. So by his early 50s, which puts us around late 90s, early 2000s, Gary is back in Atlanta, Georgia, working as a roofer. Next, we're moving on to 2008. This is when everything changes. Gary Hilton is linked to a murder, thanks to some anonymous phone calls, and eventually some crime evidence. Gary offers to show the police his victim's location if they are willing to drop the penalty, the death penalty. They agree. He pleads guilty. He is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. But wait, there's more. In early 2011, and then again in 2012, Gary is charged with 2 additional murders, both happening in 2007. He is found guilty in both trials, and because of this, that original plea deal is dismissed. The death penalty is back on the table, and that's exactly what Gary is sentenced to. Gary does confess to the murders, at least 3 of them, in great detail. He explains how he tortures his victims, how he extorts them for bank information, how he eventually kills them. He was given the nickname National Forest Serial Killer because he would commit these heinous crimes in national parks. His victims would be out enjoying nature and time with their loved ones or whoever was there, and then he would take their lives. Today, Gary Hilton is 77 years old. He remains on death row in Florida with no execution date scheduled. In the most recent news from April 2025, he confessed to his final murder that he was accused of. He does this in a television interview and claims it's because his health is declining. This next part, we're going to share the stories of the victims, the ones we for sure know about. There are 4 in total. The first 3 are the victims that he was tried for. October 2007, John and Irene Bryant. The Bryants are a retired couple in their 80s, living an active life in North Carolina. On the day they meet their fate, they'd been hiking through the Pisgah National Forest. It isn't until 2 weeks later that they are reported missing by family. Phone records are examined, indicating the couple had been near the forest when Irene had made an attempt to call 911. Her call does fail, but this gives the police a location to search. On November 10th, Irene's lifeless body was discovered. She'd been clearly beaten to death, and her husband was nowhere to be found. Not at that time, at least. It's not until February 2008 that they're able to find his remains. December 1st, 2007, Cheryl Hodges Dunlap. She is a 46-year-old from Florida. She works as a nurse at Florida State University and doesn't show up for her shift, which is highly unusual for her. Her vehicle is later found abandoned north of the county line, and the search then begins. On December 16th, which I guess would be about 2 weeks after her disappearance, her remains are discovered by a hunter and his dogs in Apalachicola National Forest. January 1st, 2008, Meredith Emerson. She is a 24-year-old sales manager going for a hike in the Chattahoochee National Forest. Witnesses confirmed seeing her at the park. They also mentioned seeing an older man with a dog trailing not too far behind her, almost as if he were following her. This mysterious person is linked to Gary Hilton. He fits the description. He often hikes this same area with his dog. He's known as a drifter. He has strange behavior and an awful temper. A few days after she'd gone missing, some items that belonged to her are found in a gas station dumpster. They find her wallet, her driver's license, some bloody clothing, and a blood-stained seatbelt. The seatbelt would later be directly tied to Gary's vehicle. There are some other names I feel are worth mentioning. They are very well possibly victims of Gary. It's just they've never been definitively linked. December 1st, 1994, Melissa Witt. She was reported missing from Franklin, Arkansas. A month later, her remains were found in a rural area of the county. September 7th, 1997, Judy Smith. Her remains are found in Pisgah National Forest 5 months after she'd gone missing from Philadelphia. This is the same forest that the Bryants, the retired couple, they had been found in. April 12th, 1998, Jason Knapp. He's a Clemson University student that was reported missing. He was last seen at Table Rock State Park in South Carolina. That's also where his vehicle was found abandoned. In 2018, so about 20 years later, they did declare him legally dead, but his body, his remains, nothing has ever been found. April 15th, 2004, Patrice Andres. She disappears from Dawson, Georgia. Her last known place was her hair salon. Her remains are found in December of the following year and in the next county over. December 7th, 2005, Rosanna Miliani. She is a young hiker last seen with an older white man in Bryson City, North Carolina. A store clerk reports her case to the police after Gary Hilton's arrest. He states that her case is quite similar to that of Meredith Emerson. And the final one, November 21st, 2007, Michael Scott Lewis. He is a resident of South Daytona when he goes missing. A few weeks later, his remains are found in the Tomoka River. Gary Hilton is a suspect because of all the case similarities, and he was also in that area at the time of the murder. But it is important to know that Michael's girlfriend was also considered a suspect. Next up, we have a couple interesting facts that I found. First, a couple different reports state that Gary endured a severe head injury as a child when he was hit by a Murphy bed. This injury required about 200 stitches to fix his scalped head. There have been other cases where serial killers had some kind of head trauma, and then they would have violent behavior later on. Is it possible that this could be linked? And with Gary Hilton's specific case, this injury, he already had a couple bouts with mental illness. I mean, all that combined, was he a ticking time bomb? Our second interesting fact. Criminal profilers would later interview Gary and propose that his killing spree started much earlier than those known victims of 2007. They argue that someone like Gary wouldn't wait until his older age to begin such an awful life of crime. So maybe there are more victims. My thoughts on this case. I guess it goes along with any other murder case we learn about. It never ceases to amaze me, the evil that's out there. How people can make those decisions and take people's lives and just go on about like nothing happened. It's repulsive, it's disgusting, and I'll never understand it. For this case, I do wonder because Gary willingly admits to those first 4 murders. There's no hesitation. He goes into great detail. He's very graphic, but yet there are potentially 6 or more other victims. If you believe the criminal profiler, there's probably even more because they think he started earlier. So why would he go into detail on these 4 murders but not utter a word about anything else? I feel like he's the type of person that wants that credit, that recognition for what he's done. So why wouldn't he admit to other murders? You can't help but wonder. So that wraps up today's case. If you have any details, if you have any other stories or any other links, please reach out. One final note, we always like to recognize our sources. Today's research comes from 4 places: Wikipedia, All That's Interesting, People, and Murderpedia. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please connect with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram or our website. We're the Shrouded in Darkness podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, share your show ideas, and ask your questions. Catch next week's show where we're going to be discussing the case of Tara Grinstead. Until next time, ghouls, we'll see you then.